Welcome to today's episode of Supercharged Energy for Life. So today we're going to try something a little bit different, and that is that we're basically going to go into as much detail as we can within a context of a podcast on the revolutionary impact of exercise and how it affects your health and energy. Now, this is actually all part of a 6-month initiative of which has just been led by Nikki Gratrix, and she's basically been putting together this Energy for Life course, which is basically this incredibly well researched. It's actually like 1,000 pages long, although fortunately for everyone, she's condensed it down from that and basically created 26 shorter videos. I believe are between half an hour and an hour long per unit, so you can just watch the videos instead of read all the text. All right, well, let's just get right into it. So in this podcast, we're basically going to be talking about why exercise is absolutely crucial to health and, of course, disease prevention. Now, if you need motivation to get going, you will really want to hear this podcast, because just beyond just fitness and weight loss goals, the life-threatening headline here is, drum roll, a lack of exercise is a major cause of death and a contributing factor to a long list of chronic diseases. This is everything from breast cancer to heart failure. And it's absolutely crucial for things like immune system response. Basically, in short, we're designed to move. I might just say that again. It's so often, when we're ill, and I've absolutely been in this boat myself when I was bedridden with chronic fatigue syndrome. You really don't want to be doing exercise. Yet, if you continue not doing exercise, it can become basically a major cause of death and a very significant factor to making your disease more chronic or getting a chronic disease in the first place. So let's get a bit deeper. So I'm basically going to give you a summary, a lot of the research and the scientific studies for you. But of course, you can find all the details in our online training. But so today, what we're going to be covering is the amazing science behind exercise. We're going to look at some exercise guidelines, some of the older guidelines, and some of the more research-backed, sort of updated guidelines. We're specifically going to look at the importance of not over-exercising and, of course, not under-exercising. And, over-exercising, again, if you're especially stressed or especially adrenaline fatigued, you might be more prone to over-exercising. So you have to have a look at that. And because it's obviously a specialty of ours, we're going to give some special guidance for those who have chronic fatigue. So if the benefits of exercise on health could be bottled into a drug, it'd be the greatest selling drug ever. Literally. Frankly, I wish I could take a pill and not do all the exercise, although these days it's fairly enjoyable. Anyway, so let's just have a look at prevention. So the studies have concluded exercise is one of the leading preventable causes of all-cause mortality in the West. What do we mean by that? We're basically saying if you exercise more when you're older, you can basically help lengthen your life. So this is what the research says. Approximately 2 million deaths per year are attributed to physical inactivity. So that could be among the 10 leading causes of death and disability in the world. Now, 15% of the 1.6 million newly diagnosed chronic diseases each year are due to a sedentary lifestyle. So, when we're looking at all of these other causes of illness, 15% of the newly diagnosed chronic diseases are due to a sedentary lifestyle. I sort of think it might be larger than that, but we'll go with this number. Exercise for 15 minutes. So, this is just an antidote. If you exercise for just 15 minutes a day, you will end up with a 14% reduced risk of all-cause mortality, and you end up with a 3-year longer life expectancy. So just by exercising 15 meager minutes a day, and I can tell you I exercise personally around I'd say at least 3 hours a day. That would give you a longer life expectancy. And each additional 15 minutes of daily exercise further reduced all-cause mortality by 4%. So basically, for every additional 15 minutes, you get another reduction of your all-cause mortality by 4%, and all-cause cancer mortality by 1%. Oh, well, that's really interesting. So if I calculate my own, if we are at around 3 hours, you've got 15 into 3 hours is 12. So I have a reduced cancer factor of 12%, and 4 times 4, that's 48%. Yes, I should live 48% longer. Well, that'd be good, wouldn't it? I don't know if it quite scales like that, but that's what the research paper here says that we've got up. Now, also, let's just look at sedentary lifestyle. So, maps across the US, they show very high levels of obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. Now, a sedentary lifestyle, it increased over the past several decades, and it increases the risk of numerous diseases and disorders, including some cancers, diabetes, hypertension, coronary and cerebral vascular diseases, overweight and obesity. Now, diabetes in particular, it is hypothesized that the behavior cause of insulin resistance is from not being physically active. In other words, if you are more physically active, you can basically help avoid insulin resistance. And I know in a few years ago, when we had some blood sugar issues and had some insulin resistance ourselves, one of the quickest ways of helping your blood glucose go down is, simply go and exercise 15-20 minutes after your meal. And I've seen my blood sugars come down from that fairly well, whereas if I didn't, they would stay high, which wasn't good. So it's just a great tip actually. I've always liked that. After a meal, you don't necessarily feel like it, but actually, if you get up and just do a 10-15 minute walk with your dog, it will actually help your digestion. Help speed up your metabolism a little bit. Get your muscles to take up some of that excess glucose. So it can be a good way of helping not to get diabetes, especially if you're going in that direction. So let's just look at cancer. So the National Cancer Institute, they confirmed greater levels of physical activity has a lower risk of more than 13 types of cancer. And this was looking at 1.44 million adults in 2016. Pretty straightforward. In more than 13 types of cancer, that's reduced if you do more physical activity. Now, unless there is a reversal of this sedentary lifestyle, the incidence of these diseases or disorders will increase and life expectancy will decrease, and of course medical costs, or your own medical costs, including society's medical costs, will continue to rise. So we don't really want to do with that. Let's now have a look at autoimmune diseases. So yes, you can have a little slogan here, but get moving and manage the disease. So studies on autoimmune diseases have shown that if you get moving, you can manage the disease. And as a general trend, autoimmune patients, they tend to be less active. So if you think you're suffering from autoimmunity and you're not active, start getting active. Now, physical activity, it's safe. It doesn't matter if you've got lupus, arthritis, MS, multiple sclerosis. It's basically been found to be safe. Now, in fact, RA, MS, IBD, and psoriasis are much higher in patients who don't move, and RA and MS patients who exercise have a milder experience, i.e. improved mobility. And here's a controversial one, especially from someone like myself who had fibromyalgia, but with fibromyalgia basically reported far less severe disease and less pain when those when those patients started moving more, and that has definitely been the case with myself. Like I found basically getting over the fatigue and just sort of exercising or moving. We'll talk about the level of these things in a minute, but basically just moving and not just staying on the couch feeling absolutely exhausted. Over time was also part of recovery. Okay, so let's just have a look at some of the specific benefits. So physical activity, it leads to an elevation of T cells, which basically means an improved immune response. Killer T cells, they can hunt down and destroy cells that are infected with germs or that have become cancerous, and helper T cells orchestrate an immune response. It can decrease your Th1 cell production. It can decrease immunoglobulin, what a lovely word, immune system cells which function as antibodies. The sedentary lifestyle that affects mental health, and there's an association between sedentary behavior and risk of anxiety. Now, findings suggest that anxiety risk, sometimes I'm a bit dyslexic, and anxiety risk increases with sedentary behavior, but they also said more studies are required. Exercise for depression. Well, basically exercise, it's a natural antidepressant, and the efficacy of exercise in decreasing symptoms of depression has been very well established. Helps the clinically depressed, and primary care physicians are recommended to counsel patients on adopting and maintaining exercise. Exercise for improving memory. If we go and have a look at a 2011 study, the hippocampus, thought to be the center of emotion, memory, and the autonomic nervous system, shrinks in the late adulthood, leading to impaired memory and increased risk of dementia. Now, exercise significantly increased the size of the hippocampus, thus improving memory. And a study with 120 people showed physical activity increased the size of the hippocampus and helped spatial memory. Exercise, it also stimulates neurogenesis. You might ask what that is. It's the growth and development of nervous tissue. This is absolutely a big one. I found my brain has massively improved due to increased activity. But running increases cell proliferation and neurogenesis, the growth and development of nervous tissue. One study found running doubled the number of surviving newborn cells, similar to enriched environmental conditions. So if you're not, if you're wondering about whether you should run, that's a pretty good reason if you want better brain function. Exercise stimulates the brain-deprived neurotrophic factor. Now, BDNF plays an important role in neuronal survival and growth. It serves as a neurotransmitter modulator and participates in neuronal plasticity, which is basically essential for learning and memory. Now, when BDNF is sprinkled on neurons in a petri dish, they grow branches that connect them. One study showed exercised animals were significantly better than sedentary controls at learning and recalling. It showed that exercise increased brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a molecule that's important for brain plasticity, learning, and memory. Animals who were the fastest learners and had the best recall had the highest expression of BDNF. Now, it also increases functional plasticity. Now, basically, this means that the plasticity in the intact and injured central nervous system by using neurotrophins. Now, studies showed that exercise impacts brain circuitry by promoting neuronal repair and enhanced learning and memory, and showed that exercise may be a powerful way to counteract the harmful effects of aging. Seems pretty much the evidence is very in favour of more exercise. So maybe more companies should run lunchtime jogs for their employees, or in my own case, I basically do all my phone calls walking around, and sometimes you get traffic noises in the back if you talk to me, or often a dog barking. We also do a lot of our meetings walking as well. So, I think it's just important just to keep moving. Now, rats who were unable to run, they produced less BDNF. And another study showed spontaneous running and stopping abruptly leads to a decreasing trophic factor in hippocampus, which is the part of the brain thought to be the centre of emotion, memory, and the autonomic nervous system. Now, exercise which produces BDNF protects neurons from degenerating, which is basically good news for anti-aging. And another study showed that there was a strong positive correlation between distance running and BDNF and RNA expression, and that exercise-induced upregulation of BDNF may help increase the brain's resistance to damage and neurodegeneration that occurs with aging. Let's have a look at some of the improvements in diseases. So walking reduces Parkinson's disease. That's pretty huge. In 2014, a study that lasted 3 weeks with, the exercise was 3 times per week with 45-minute sessions over 6 months with a randomized trial of aerobic exercise in Parkinson's disease. It basically showed that it could improve their motor function, fatigue, mood, cognition, quality of life, as well as fitness. Well, that's just huge because you don't generally hear people with Parkinson's getting better. Yet, a very, very simple way. Back to that point, if you could put exercise in a pill, we would all be taking it. But of course, it's actually free. We could spend tens of thousands of dollars on some lovely drug, or we could spend absolutely zero on exercise and help to reverse a lot of our diseases. I say do the exercise. Huntington's, walking delayed onset in mice by the equivalent of 10 years. Studies also show that exercise improves Alzheimer's, epilepsy, stroke, and traumatic brain injury. I don't think I'll bother listing all of those studies, but they're there on the net if you would like to find them. They're also all listed in our course. And in terms of prevention, it's helpful against dementia and brain aging. So a 2011 study showed better cognitive scores after 12 months of exercise compared to sedentary control groups. The brain cognitive networks showed resonance imaging displays showing improved connectivity after just 6 to 12 months of exercise. In the Mayo Clinic, it reviewed 1,603 studies and found that 29 studies showed improvements in cognitive function in adults without dementia in terms of memory, attention, processing speed, and ability to form and act on plans. And most of these benefits were found from 2.5 hours of aerobic exercise per week in most of the studies. Anyway, so this is a big one. Walking reduces Alzheimer's and dementia by, have a guess, a staggering 60%. So if you have Alzheimer's and dementia and you don't go walking, you're making a very, very big mistake. And if you're really, really afraid of getting dementia and Alzheimer's, which I imagine most people are, I've witnessed my dad with that. So it's I'm certainly going to keep well. I'm almost afraid to not move. I'm an absolute movement freak these days. But anyway, cognitive and mental decline reduced by 60% if they did 4 to 5 of the following. Here we go. So all you have to do, walk 2 miles or bike 10 miles or vigorous exercise. That would be the biggest contributor. 3 to 4 servings of fruit and veg per day. Normal weight measured by BMI. Low alcohol intake and no smoking. Pretty simple stuff. If you just live healthily, you are 60% less likely to, not less likely, it actually reduces the symptoms. So, the walking reduces the Alzheimer's and dementia symptoms by a staggering 60%. Mortality, i.e. dying, even a little bit works. So, pretty simple. If you want to live longer, just sit less and move more. A tip for that is enjoy it, basically. find something that gives you pleasure. If you don't have a dog, maybe get a dog, and they just demand that you walk. I mean, they won't accept anything less. That's a way. Or find a particular hobby. If whether it's yoga. In my case, hydrofoiling. Where it's not particularly active hydrofoiling. You just balance on a board all day long. But it's still outside and all good. Anyway, so avoiding a prolonged sitting has been associated with a lower mortality, and exercises decrease long mortality. That can be hard in a work environment. We do all sit down an awful lot. But I think in many cases, you can make your phone calls standing up, walking around. You can also have, ask for standing desks and all that type of thing. Avoid inactivity. Now, some physical activity is absolutely better than none. At a minimum, for substantial health benefits, adults should do at least 150, which is 2 hours and a half, a week of moderate intensity. So that basically means walking on even terrain at 3 to 4.5 miles per hour, or biking 5 to 9 miles per hour. Or 75 minutes, which is an hour and 15 minutes a week of vigorous, intense aerobic activity or equivalent combination. Aerobic activity should be formed in episodes of at least 10 minutes, and preferably it should be spread throughout the week. To meet current guidelines, individuals must walk a minimum of 3,000 steps in 30 minutes on 5 days each week. Adults also should do muscle strengthening activities, which is 2 days per week. And high-intensity interval training combines short, high-intense bursts of exercise with slow recovery phases repeated throughout one short 15 to 20-minute session. It's done at 85 to 100% of one's maximum heart rate, rather than 50 to 70% in moderate endurance activity. You have 4-minute workouts where you repeat cycles of 20 seconds of all-out work, followed by 10 seconds of rest. 4 days a week basically brought greater aerobic improvements than an hour's normal workout done 5 days a week for 6 weeks. The benefits of basically high intensity training improves brain function and improves cardiovascular function. Now, tips for exercising more. 1, we mentioned this, do something you enjoy. 2, do it consistently. So doing something regularly is far better, even if it means for less time than you'd like. Spread out your activity. You don't need to get all your exercise in at one time. You can do a few minutes in the morning, noon, night. It gives you much the same benefit as 30 minutes all at once. I'd actually say it gives you more benefit when you spread stuff out, because you're moving throughout the day rather than getting sedentary for long periods. Consider exercising with a friend. It can basically help keep you on track and motivate you. When you walk, make it brisk, since that will help control weight better than walking at a leisurely pace. You're going to speed up your metabolism and all the blood flow somewhat. Walk as though you're meeting someone and running a little late. Easy for me, I'm running late a lot. So move before and or after eating. So you could hit the gym. I just ate, but I'm doing a podcast after eating. But after the podcast, I'm going to go on walk. So you could hit the gym or go for a 20-minute walk with co-workers and have lunch afterwards. You could go for an evening walk after dinner. Try a pedometer. That might help motivate you to be active. And you can do your 10,000 steps per day. Personally, I find that very motivating, looking at some little digital display on your wrist. But others do. Exercise, you can exercise while watching TV. I've never managed to do that particularly successfully, but I have done a lot of yoga, often in front of TV, which is sort of exercise. I'll set a reminder at work to get up and walk a few minutes every hour. Sign up for a class. Personally, I find that a lot easier for yoga. I've never been so motivated for doing it at home, but if you build it into your routine by going to a class, and obviously once you're in that class, it's hard to escape. So you're going to you're going to do an hour to hour and a half. If you do it in the class, you might do it for 10 minutes at home, or you start snacking and watching the next episode on Netflix, which that would be a great tip. Get rid of Netflix. Top tip, but I don't do it myself, so I can't really say it. Plan exercise into your day. Write it in your planner. Reward yourself. So set short-term goals. And yeah, ditching the car. That's an interesting one. I do that. So our yoga studio is, what is that? I think it's like 1.5 miles or 2 miles down the road. You know, I used to drive there. I now take my bike there and back. So you know, I think wherever there's an opportunity to walk or bike, I would say do it. So let's now look at the dangers of over-exercising. It's especially true if you're totally stressed out or burnt out. So exercising increases cortisol levels. High cortisol can cause fat storage. It can also suppress immunity, as high cortisol suppresses immunity. Over-exercising is a direct cause of adrenal insufficiency. I'll put my hand up on this. You know, I used to be, well, obviously I still exercise actually a lot, but I used to do a ton of mountain climbing and rock climbing. You know, it's at university while I was also burning the candle at both ends, and yeah, I completely overdid it. Not good. So if you have adrenal exhaustion along with an overactive brain and nervous system, i.e., you know, you get sleep issues and stress, and high intensity exercise, you know, may worsen your sleep and actually and energy levels and prolong burnout. So be careful of that. And overtraining is well known to cause hormone imbalances. It says here in female athletes, well, you know, I think males have hormones too. Definitely affects both. Marathon runners, they can have higher rates of cardiac events than moderate exercises. Obviously, marathon runners are fairly extreme, and strenuous exercise increases intestinal permeability. So, you know, I would think of rapid movement than, you know, super intense or long exercise. Now, signs that you're exercising too hard for your body could be weight gain, worse sleep, insomnia, delayed recovery team. So, you know, exhaustion, weakened immune system, loss of motivation, etc., etc. Decreased performance, whatever that means. You never know. Are they referencing a man? Probably. As we get older, probably 35 years and older, we don't necessarily do better pounding on the treadmill for 45 minutes. You're better really doing the other sort of two. You know, you've got the doing the gentle, longer exercises like walking, and then you have the very intense. And then in the middle, you've got this old style of sort of aerobic exercise for 45 minutes. That's the one generally, you know, where you're having to pump out cortisol for the whole of 45 minutes. That's actually, you know, that's the one that can lead to more fatigue and stress out your adrenals. There's a really intense stuff because, you know, you're doing it for 10 to 20 seconds, you know, up for with rest. Like your whole exercise period might be only 2 minutes, although it will peak cortisol and stress you out. Obviously, it's not continually stressing you out, so you have plenty of time to recover. And the opposite, well, I say, and the same is true with long, gentle exercise of going for a walk of an hour or two, where your cortisol and stress, you know, never gets high at all. In fact, it generally lowers. So, yeah, if you're adrenally fatigued, do your hits and do your long, gentle movement. Don't do the middle. I'd say if you're not fatigued, I think you can start to build in more of that aerobic exercise. It's one of my little bugbears, to be honest. Is as I've basically managed to recover myself from being bedridden all those years ago. I've got the two extremes relatively down. Sometimes I struggle with it. You know, I struggle a bit with the middle one, and that's actually one I want to overcome this year. So I'll let you know my progress on that. With chronic fatigue syndrome, a study of 8 randomized controlled trials of CFS and graded exercise therapy showed that 51% of CFS patients reported harm from GES. Yeah, doesn't sound good. CFS and depression, they're not the same, and they should not be approached in the same way of exercise. CFS patients need careful pacing, and exercise is a form of hormesis. It's a stressor on the body. Some very small amounts can trigger a healing response. It's really like the HIIT stuff, that can trigger a healing response, but if you do these longer aerobic things, it will not. It will just burn you out more. If the stress is more than the body can cope with, there will likely be damage done at the cellular level in CFS. That is all part of the 4 bioenergetic principles, and the sort of body as a battery type idea, which you can also, well, soon you'll be able to read it in the Energy for Life book. Guidelines on exercise for CFS and adrenal fatigue or burnout are 1. If you're doing physical activity to the point of booming and busting, when you have energy, do physical activity to the point where you have more fatigue or delayed fatigue afterwards. That's a sign of too much activity and you need to cut back. 2, on the other hand, doing no activity is very harmful for long-term health. The less you use your physical body, the less mitochondria you'll produce, worsening fatigue and shortening your lifespan. Physical inactivity results in the so-called disused syndrome, which includes premature aging, obesity, cardiovascular vulnerability, musculoskeletal fragility, and depression. And if you're bedbound, you need to do exercises daily that move your legs and arms, because not doing so much, you'll get delayed fatigue afterwards. If you are housebound, even just walking to the end of a garden or back is important, and slowly increasing, but cutting back when you hit your limit. And yoga and stretching are incredibly important, and actually can be life-changing. And I wouldn't say I'm a yoga type, but I have found over the years, the more yoga I do, the better. And when I don't do yoga, I really do start to stiffen up and sort of go slowly back to sort of fibromyalgia. So I'm very keen to keep up yoga. It keeps me more supple and with more energy for life. And to sum it all up, just don't give up on exercise, or if you're not doing it, then take up exercise. So thank you for listening, and see you all soon.